The transport shuttle descended through the shimmering energy field that protected the Galactic Institute of Advanced Sciences. Inside, Kang Day pressed his face against the window, watching the massive station grow larger with each passing second. The structure was beautiful in a way that Earth buildings could never be. It seemed to float in the darkness of space, glowing with soft lights from 1,000 different windows. "Stop acting like a tourist," Choi Hana said from the seat beside him. She was trying to look calm, but Dean noticed her hands gripping the armrests tightly. They were all nervous, even if they tried to hide it. "Let him enjoy it," Park Ji-won said with a smile. "We are tourists. First humans to ever study here, remember?" Lee Taeyang looked up from his datapad. "First humans to study here. First humans in the Galactic Council. First humans to do a lot of things. No pressure or anything." The shuttle docked with a soft thump. A mechanical voice spoke in perfect Korean, then repeated the same message in 46 other languages. "Welcome to the Galactic Institute. Please proceed to Orientation Hall 7. The 4 humans grabbed their bags and stepped into the station. The corridor was wide enough to fit 20 people walking side by side. The walls glowed with a gentle blue light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past them. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated. A few rolled on wheels that seemed to be part of their bodies. Day tried not to stare, but it was difficult. A creature that looked like a 3-meter-tall bird with silver feathers nodded at him as it passed. Its eyes were kind, at least Day thought they were kind. He was still learning to read alien expressions. Orientation took 2 hours. A Morphix administrator whose body shifted through different colors explained the rules. No violence of any kind. Respect all species equally. Attend all required classes. The basic things that made sense anywhere in the universe. Then came the hard part. Class assignments. All first cycle students must take comparative civilization studies, the administrator said. Its body turned orange, which Day had learned meant emphasis. Professor Velthar teaches the largest section. You have been assigned to his class. It begins tomorrow. That night, in their shared quarters, the 4 humans tried to prepare. They had been given reading materials about the other species in the galaxy. There was so much to learn. Did you read the part about the Quillians? Hana asked. They have never had a war, not one, in their entire history. The Drathani are the same, Jiwan added. They had disputes, but they always solved them through council meetings and voting. Taeyang shook his head. I do not understand how that is possible. What did they do when resources were limited? They shared, Jiwan said simply. They just shared. Day lay in his bed that night thinking about that. A species that never fought wars. He could barely imagine it. The next morning they entered the grand lecture hall for the first time. Day stopped in the doorway, overwhelmed. The room was enormous, shaped like a bowl with seats rising up in all directions. Hundreds of students were already there, representing dozens of different species. Professor Velthar stood at the center. He was Quillian, covered in silver-tipped quills that moved gently as he breathed. His 6 eyes could apparently look in multiple directions at once. He noticed the humans immediately. Ah, our new students from Earth, he said. His voice was warm and welcoming. Please find seats. We are about to begin. The 4 humans climbed to an empty section. Other students watched them with curiosity. Some pointed. A few whispered to each other. Professor Velthar began his lecture. Welcome to Comparative Civilization Studies. In this course, we examine how different species develop their societies, solve their problems, and eventually reach the stars. We learn from each other's successes and mistakes. He activated a holographic display. Images of different planets appeared, spinning slowly in the air. Today we begin with a simple topic: resource management. Every species faces this challenge. Population grows, but food production has limits. How did your ancestors solve this problem before they had advanced technology? A Quillian student raised one wing-like arm. My people developed methods to grow fungus in caves. One cave could feed a whole city. Excellent, Professor Velthar said. His quills lifted slightly, which apparently meant he was pleased. A Drathani student spoke next. Its voice was high and musical. We created rationing councils. Every family received exactly what they needed. Nothing was wasted, more students answered. The Morphix expanded to new territories but always asked permission from whoever lived there first. The Skeller developed sleep technology that let some of their population hibernate during hard times. The Tethazari learned to eat almost anything. which made food shortages rare. Every answer was peaceful. Every answer was cooperative. Every answer made sense. Then Professor Velthar looked at the human section. And what about Earth? How did humans handle this challenge? Day glanced at Hana, Jiwan, and Taeyang. They all looked at him. Somehow, without speaking, they had decided he would answer. He stood up slowly. We tried many things, he began. We developed better farming methods. Crop rotation, irrigation, fertilizers. We expanded into new territories. Professor Velthar nodded encouragingly, similar to many species. And when those methods were not enough? Day hesitated. He could lie. He could make humanity sound better than they were. But he remembered what his instructors on Earth had told him. Honesty builds trust. The galaxy needed to know who humans really were. When those were not enough, Day said clearly, we fought wars over the remaining resources. We conquered other human groups and took their land. In extreme famines, some human populations resorted to cannibalism. The lecture hall went completely silent. It was not a normal silence. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like the air itself had frozen. Every alien student was staring at the humans now. Professor Velthar's quills went flat against his body. All 6 of his eyes focused on Day. Could you repeat that? The professor asked. His voice was strange now, tight and controlled. Cannibalism, Professor, Day repeated. Eating other humans. It was rare and happened only in the worst circumstances, but it did happen. Our history records several instances during severe famines. A student in the front row made a sound like choking. Another student, something that looked like a floating jellyfish, changed from blue to dark purple and quickly left the hall. Professor Velthar was silent for a long moment. His quills remained flat. Day noticed other professors standing at the edges of the hall. They were all watching now, their expressions unreadable. I think, Professor Velthar said slowly, that we will end today's lecture early. Human students, please remain. Everyone else is dismissed. The other students left quickly, many of them glancing back at the humans with wide eyes. Within minutes, the huge lecture hall was empty except for Day, Hana, Jiwan, Taeyang, and several professors who had moved closer. Professor Velthar stood before them. His quills were slowly rising again, but their color had changed from silver to almost white. Did you speak the truth? He asked quietly. Yes, Professor, Day answered. The professor exchanged looks with the other faculty members. Something passed between them, something the humans could not read. You will prepare a detailed presentation, Professor Velthar said finally, about human history, about how your species solved conflicts and managed resources throughout your development. You will present it in 2 weeks. How detailed? Hana asked nervously. Completely detailed, another professor answered. She was Drethani, with pale skin and large eyes. We need to understand your species better. All of us do. The humans were dismissed. They walked back to their quarters in silence. Only when the door closed behind them did Taeyang speak. I think we just scared the entire galaxy. Jiwan sat down heavily. We just told them the truth. How bad could it be? Day looked at his friends and felt a cold weight in his stomach. I think we are about to find out. Professor Velthar did not sleep that night. Quillians needed very little sleep anyway, but this night he could not have rested even if he wanted to. He sat in his office staring at the holographic display in front of him. The files on humanity floated in the air, page after page of information. He had read these files before, of course. Every professor read about new species before they arrived. Earth's application to the Galactic Council had been thorough. It mentioned that humans had a turbulent history. It said there had been conflicts and struggles. But the words had seemed normal to him. Every species had conflicts. The Kresh had disputes over mining rights that lasted generations. The Veltoth argued about philosophy for centuries. Conflict was natural, but cannibalism, war for resources, that was different. He called an emergency meeting. By midnight, 5 of the Academy's senior professors sat in the conference room. Dean Chernak arrived first, his transparent Morphix body shifting through worried colors. Dr. Alithia came next, moving slowly on her 4 Drethani legs. Professor Karen materialized through the quantum door, her Tethsari form shimmering slightly. This had better be important, Velthar, Dean Chernak said. I was reviewing applications for next term. It is important, Velthar assured him. It is about the humans. Everyone in the room became still. What did they do? Dr. Alithia asked. Her large eyes were full of concern. They answered a question honestly, Velthar said. He activated his own holographic display. I asked how their species managed food shortages in pre-industrial times. The answer was disturbing. He played the recording from the lecture. They all watched Kangde stand and explain. They all heard the word cannibalism. They all saw the reaction of the other students when the recording ended. No one spoke for a long time. Is this real? Dean Chernak asked finally. His body had turned gray, a color Velthar had never seen him display before. I pulled their official files, Velthar said. He brought up more documents. The application mentioned historical conflicts, but the details were minimal. I am requesting full historical records from Earth now. Professor Karen leaned forward. As the Academy's expert on galactic history, she had studied every council species in depth. I reviewed the human application personally. There were mentions of something called world wars. I assumed they were regional disputes like the Kresh territorial disagreements. Are you saying they were worse? I do not know yet, Velthar admitted, but I intend to find out. I have asked the human students to prepare a comprehensive presentation on their conflict resolution history. Dr. Alithia made a soft humming sound, which was how Drathani expressed worry. Perhaps we should be careful. If their history is violent, should we be drawing attention to it? The other students are already frightened. The other students need to understand, Velthar said firmly. And so do we. These humans are council members now. We need to know who they are. The meeting lasted until dawn. They decided to review whatever presentation the humans prepared, then determine if the Galactic Council needed to be informed. Meanwhile, in the human quarters, Day and his friends were facing their own difficult night. They sat around their common room, data pads spread everywhere, trying to figure out how to explain human history to aliens who had never experienced war. We could focus on the positive parts, Hana suggested. Talk about the peace treaties, the United Nations, international cooperation. They asked for honesty, Jiwan countered. If we hide things now and they find out later, it will be worse. Taeyang was scrolling through historical databases. His face was pale. Do you realize how bad this looks? I am reading about the Mongol invasions. 40 million dead. The 30 Years' War, 8 million dead. World War I, 20 million dead. And those are just a few examples. What choice do we have? Day asked. We cannot change what happened. We can only explain it. For 2 weeks they worked. They barely attended other classes. They compiled data, created charts, wrote explanations. They argued about what to include and what to leave out. In the end, they decided to include everything. Not because they were proud of it, but because hiding it felt wrong. They practiced the presentation a dozen times. Each time it felt worse. Seeing all of human violence laid out in charts and numbers made Day feel sick. This was his species, his ancestors, his history. The night before the presentation, Hana found him sitting alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Cannot sleep? She asked, sitting beside him. I keep thinking about what they will say, Day admitted. What they will think of us. They will think we are violent, Hana said quietly. Because we were, I do not know the right tense for it. Are, Day corrected. Humans are still capable of violence. We just choose not to use it now. Most of the time. They sat in silence for a while. My grandmother told me a story once, Hana said, about the Korean War. Her village was destroyed. Her family scattered. She was 10 years old and alone for 2 months before finding her parents again. She said the worst part was not the violence itself. It was how normal it became. How quickly people adapted to horror. Why are you telling me this? Day asked. Because she also told me that humans have a gift. We can adapt to anything. War, peace, whatever comes. Maybe that is what we should tell them. Not that we are peaceful now, but that we can choose peace even when it is hard. The presentation day arrived. The grand lecture hall was packed. Word had spread about the human history presentation. Students from every species wanted to see it. Professor Velthar had even opened it to faculty members. The dean was there, sitting in the front row. Choi Hana stepped up to the presentation platform. The room fell silent immediately. Thank you for coming, she began. Her voice was steady, though Day could see her hands shaking slightly. We are going to show you human history. Some of it will be difficult to hear. We ask that you please listen until the end. She activated the holographic display. A timeline appeared stretching back 200,000 years. Humans evolved on Earth roughly 200,000 years ago, Hannah explained. For most of that time, we lived in small groups. We hunted and gathered food. Like many species, we competed for resources. The timeline moved forward. Images appeared showing early human settlements. Around 12,000 years ago, we developed agriculture. This allowed our population to grow. More people meant more food was needed. More food needed more land. More land created more conflict. She paused, then continued. What made humans different was how we resolved these conflicts. We developed organized warfare. The holographic display showed armies, weapons, battles. The numbers began to appear. The Mongol conquests in the 13th century. Approximately 40 million deaths. The 30 Years' War in Europe, 8 million deaths. The Napoleonic Wars, 6 million deaths. Some students in the audience made sounds of distress. A few stood up to leave, but most stayed, frozen in their seats. Hannah moved through history. The timeline advanced. The numbers grew larger. World War I, 1914 to 1918, 20 million deaths. Professor Velthar's quills began turning white. World War II, 1939 to 1945, 70 to 85 million deaths. Several students did leave now. I heard one of them making a sound like crying as they ran from the hall, but Hannah kept going. She showed the atomic bombs, the Holocaust, the killing fields, all of it, every terrible thing humans had done to each other. When she finished, the lecture hall was silent except for the soft humming of the holographic display. Dean Chernak stood up. His body was completely gray now, something Velthar had only seen once before during a station-wide emergency. How? The dean asked. His voice was barely a whisper. How is your species not extinct? Hannah looked at Day. This was not a question they had prepared for. We adapt, Day said, standing up. We survive. No matter how bad things get, humans find a way to continue. Dr. Olithia made her humming sound again, louder this time. That should not be possible. No species survives this level of internal violence. The mathematics do not allow it. What mathematics? Jiwan asked. The professor activated her own display. Graphs and equations filled the air. Every intelligent species reaches a point where internal conflict threatens extinction. It is a natural part of evolution. But there is a threshold. Once violence reaches a certain level, societies collapse. They cannot recover. She pointed to a line on one of her graphs. This is the extinction threshold. Based on population size and resource availability, no species should be able to cross this line and survive. Then she pointed to a second line, much higher up on the graph. This is where humans would fall, based on the data you just presented. You are not just past the threshold. You're so far past it that you should not exist. Li Taeyang stared at the graphs. But we do exist. Yes, Dr. Olithia said softly. You do, and I do not understand how. The meeting in Dean Chernak's office took place 3 days after the presentation. The 4 human students sat on one side of a long table. On the other side were 5 professors and the dean himself. The mood was tense. Professor Velthar spoke first. His quills were still pale, though not as white as they had been during the presentation. We have been reviewing your historical data, cross-checking it with your official records. Everything you told us is accurate. Of course it is accurate, Hannah said, sounding slightly offended. We would not lie about our own history. We did not think you were lying, Dean Chernak said quickly. His body shifted through apologetic colors. We were hoping you were exaggerating, or perhaps that your numbers were wrong. But they are not wrong. Dr. Olithia pulled up her graphs again. I have spent 3 days running simulations. I used every model we have for species development and survival. I input human population data, resource availability, conflict frequency, and casualty numbers. She pressed a button and the results appeared. Every simulation showed the same thing, a line that climbed upward for a while then crashed down to 0. In every single simulation, humanity goes extinct, she said flatly. Most models predict extinction around your year 1500. The latest predictions give you until 1950 at most. Yet here you are alive and thriving in 2185. It makes no sense. Park Ji-won leaned forward, studying the graphs. As an anthropologist, he understood models and predictions. Your simulations are missing something. What are they based on? Data from every other intelligent species in the galaxy, Dr. Olithia answered. 46 different species across thousands of years of development. The patterns are consistent. Violence past a certain threshold always leads to extinction. Show us the data on the most violent species, Jiwan requested. Before humans, who held that record? Professor Karen activated another display. The Kresh. They are a warrior culture very proud of their military history. Over 4,000 years of recorded civilization, they had approximately 500,000 deaths from internal conflict. Taeyang did quick mental math. That is an average of 125 deaths per year. We had single battles with more casualties than that. Exactly our point, Professor Velthar said. His quills rippled with emotion. The Kresh nearly destroyed themselves with 500,000 deaths over 4 millennia. You had 85 million deaths in 6 years and somehow survived. Day was starting to understand something. You all evolved on easy planets, did you not? The professors looked at each other, confused by the question. Define easy, Dean Chernak said. Planets where food was abundant, where predators were rare, where the weather was stable and predictable. Dr. Olithia pulled up planetary data. The Drethani homeworld has no large predators. Our ancestors' biggest threat was occasional flooding. The Quillian homeworld is rich in edible fungi and has a very stable climate. The Morphic's homeworld has so much vegetation that food scarcity is almost unknown. She went through each species. Every single one had evolved on a planet that was, by Earth standards, remarkably safe. Earth was different, Jiwan said. He activated his own data pad and shared images. Ice ages that killed 90% of species. Super volcanoes that blocked out the sun for years. Droughts that lasted generations. And predators everywhere. Humans evolved while being hunted by lions, tigers, bears, wolves, and dozens of other creatures that wanted to eat us. We domesticated the wolves, Hana added. We turned our predators into our companions. Does any other species do that? The silence that followed was answer enough. We also competed with each other, Day continued. Not just for food, but for everything. Territory, mates, resources, ideas. Earth was never easy. Survival was never guaranteed. So we evolved to survive impossible situations. And violence was part of that survival, Taeyang added. We are not proud of it, but it is true. Humans who could fight lived longer than humans who could not. Tribes that could defend themselves survived. Civilizations that could wage war conquered civilizations that could not. Professor Velthar made a sound like a sigh. So you are saying violence is genetic for you? Part of your nature? Yes and no, G1 answered carefully. We have the capacity for violence, but we also have the capacity for cooperation. Both are genetic. Both helped us survive. He pulled up his own presentation, something he had prepared after seeing Dr. Olithia's simulations. Look at human history differently, he said. Yes, we had wars, but between wars we had peace. We built cities. We created art, we developed science. We wrote poetry and music. We formed families and communities. We helped each other. The display showed images of human achievement. The pyramids, the Great Wall, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the Space Age. Every time we destroyed something, we rebuilt it better, G1 continued. Every time we nearly wiped ourselves out, we came back stronger. We did not survive despite our violence. We survived because we learned from it. Impossible, Dr. Olithia whispered, but she was staring at the data with new eyes. Look at World War II, Jiwan said, zooming in on that section of history. 85 million dead. The worst war in human history. It ended in 1945 with the use of atomic weapons. Bombs powerful enough to destroy entire cities in seconds. The professors looked horrified. But then, look at what happened next, Jiwan continued. The countries that fought that war became allies. They created the United Nations to prevent future wars. They established the Geneva Conventions to make war less brutal. They built the International Space Station together, former enemies working side by side in space. He showed them images of the ISS, of astronauts from different nations sharing meals and conducting experiments. We created weapons that could end our species, Jiwan said quietly, and then we chose not to use them. We had the power to destroy ourselves completely and we stepped back from that edge. Does that sound like a species doomed to extinction? Dean Chernak's color was slowly changing from gray to a lighter shade. You are saying that your capacity for violence makes you capable of choosing peace? We are saying that peace means more to us because we know what the alternative costs, Hannah said. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. We carry genetic memories of war, famine, plague, disaster. We know what we are capable of. That knowledge makes us careful. Professor Karen had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she spoke. I have been studying your cultural development. Something stands out to me. You have a concept called war crimes. You create rules for how to fight wars. Why? Because even in war we want to be civilized, Day answered. We want to believe we are better than our worst instincts. So we make rules and we punish people who break them. You punish your own soldiers for being too violent during wars? Professor Velthar asked in disbelief. Yes, we have courts for it. International tribunals. We put our own people on trial for war crimes. The professors looked at each other. This clearly confused them deeply. I think I understand now, Professor Karen said slowly. You are not violent or peaceful. You are both simultaneously. You hold yourselves to standards even while breaking them. You condemn war while preparing for it. You are walking contradictions. We are human, Day said with a small smile. Contradictions are kind of our specialty. Dr. Olithia was still running calculations. I need to revise my models. Clearly I was missing variables. Species that evolve under extreme pressure might develop resilience factors that offset violent tendencies, the capacity to recover from disasters, the ability to cooperate after conflicts, cultural mechanisms for learning from mistakes. You make us sound like an equation, Taeyang said. Everything is an equation, Dr. Olithia replied. I just need to find the right one for humans. Dean Chernak stood up. I need to report this to the Galactic Council. They approved Earth's membership based on incomplete information. They need to know the full truth about human history. Will they revoke our membership? Hannah asked nervously. The Dean's color shifted to something the humans had not seen before, a deep blue mixed with gold. I honestly do not know. This is unprecedented. We have never had a species like yours in the Council, but that is for the Council to decide, not me. The meeting ended shortly after. The humans walked back to their quarters in silence. They had been honest, but honesty might cost them everything. Do you think they will kick us out? Taeyang asked when they were alone. Maybe, Jiwan admitted. We are scary to them. They have never met anyone like us. Day looked out the window at the stars. My grandfather fought in a war. He told me once that the hardest battles are not fought with weapons. They are fought with words and choices. He said that choosing peace when you could choose violence is the most difficult thing a person can do. We have been choosing peace for 75 years, Hannah said. 3 generations without a major war. That has to count for something. I hope so, Day said. I really hope so. The Galactic Council chamber existed in a place between places, accessible only through quantum portals. It was neutral ground, built by the combined effort of all member species over 200 years ago. The chamber itself was beautiful, a vast sphere where representatives could float or sit according to their species' needs. Today, the chamber was full. All 47 member species had sent their representatives. This was only the 3rd emergency session in the Council's entire history. The Morphic's Chancellor opened the session, her body displaying formal silver patterns. We are here to discuss the recent findings about humanity. Dean Chernak of the Galactic Institute has submitted a detailed report. We have all reviewed it. Now we must decide what it means. A 3-dimensional display activated in the center of the chamber. Human history appeared, all of it laid out in brutal detail. The representative from Veltor Prime spoke first. His people were known for careful logic and mathematical precision. The numbers are clear. Humanity should be extinct. They exceed every known survival threshold by orders of magnitude. Yet they thrive. This suggests our understanding of species development is fundamentally incomplete. Or it suggests that humans are dangerous, the Kresh delegate said. His species had been the galaxy's warriors, proud of their military tradition. Now he looked at human history with something like awe and fear mixed together. My ancestors conquered 6 star systems over 2,000 years. We pride ourselves on our strength, but we lost 500,000 total in all our conflicts. Humans lost more than that in single years. Multiple times. They developed atomic weapons while fighting a global war, a Drithani representative added, her voice shaking. We took 300 years of peaceful cooperation to achieve nuclear technology. They did it in the middle of killing each other. The chamber filled with worried voices. Representatives spoke over each other, their fear evident. What happens when they turn that capacity outward? Should we allow them full council membership? Are we in danger? Admiral Catherine stood up. She was Tethsari, one of the few military officers given a council voice. The Galactic Defense Fleet was small and rarely needed, but it existed to protect council space from unknown threats. I have reviewed human military history in depth, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. I need you all to understand something. Humans are not just violent. They are strategic. They learn from every conflict. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. She activated her own display showing comparative data. The Kresh took 400 years to develop effective siege tactics. Humans developed them in generations. We took 2 centuries to create coordinated fleet movements. Humans achieved it in decades. They innovate under pressure in ways we cannot match. Is that supposed to make us feel better? Someone asked. No, Admiral Catherine said bluntly. It is supposed to make you understand what we are dealing with. Humans are not just survivors. They are optimized for conflict in ways we never needed to be. A long silence followed. The Preservation Institute's representative spoke next. Her organization was dedicated to protecting endangered species and preventing extinctions. I have a different concern. Humans nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They created weapons capable of ending all life on their planet. They used those weapons. Then they chose to stop using them. That level of restraint, after that level of violence, is unique. She pulled up more data. Look at their cultural development. After World War II, they created international laws against genocide. They established human rights conventions. They built global institutions dedicated to preventing war. They did not just survive their violence. They built systems to contain it. But those systems could fail, someone argued. Of course they could fail, the representative agreed. Any system can fail. But humans created them anyway. They chose to try. That suggests something important about their nature. Dr. Olithia appeared via holographic projection. She had been invited to present her research. I have been studying human resilience. I believe I have identified several factors that explain their survival. She displayed her new models. First, humans have extraordinary adaptability. They can survive in almost any environment. Second, they have strong social bonds that persist even through conflicts. Third, they have cultural mechanisms for learning from disasters. Fourth, and most importantly, they have hope. Hope is not a survival mechanism, someone objected. For humans it is, Dr. Olithia insisted. I have reviewed thousands of human historical documents. Even in their darkest moments, they believed they could build something better. That belief drove them to keep trying, keep rebuilding, keep surviving. It is not logical, but it is effective. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives wanted to revoke Earth's membership immediately. Others argued that humanity's unique perspective could be valuable. A few pointed out that Earth was already a member, and removing them could create more problems than it solved. Finally, the Chancellor called for order. We cannot undo Earth's membership without cause. They have not threatened anyone. They have not violated any council laws. Their past is violent, but their present is peaceful. The question is whether we believe they will remain peaceful. And if they do not, the Kresh delegate asked. What then? We have no military force capable of stopping a species that treats war like we treat mathematics. Admiral Catherine spoke again. That is not entirely true. We could stop them, but it would require us to become something we have never been. It would require us to think like they do, to prepare for conflict the way they prepare. It would change us. Maybe that is exactly what we need, a new voice said. Everyone turned. The speaker was from Skeller Prime, a species known for quiet wisdom and long-term thinking. Their representative rarely spoke, but when she did, people listened. We have been fortunate, the Skeller representative continued. Our species evolved on gentle worlds. We reached the stars through cooperation and patience. We built this council on principles of peace. But we have always known there are other species out there beyond our borders, species we have not contacted. Some of them do not answer our messages. Some of them show signs of aggression. She gestured to the star maps displayed around the chamber. There are unknowns in this galaxy. We have avoided them because we do not know how to handle conflict. We are peaceful because we have never needed to be anything else. But what happens when we encounter a species that is not peaceful? What happens when cooperation is not enough? The chamber was completely quiet now. Humans know how to handle conflict, the Skeller representative said. They know how to fight, how to win, and most importantly, how to make peace afterward. They have done it hundreds of times. They are experts at war and experts at ending wars. We need that expertise. You want to use them as weapons, the Morphic's chancellor said slowly. No. I want to learn from them. I want them to teach us to be strong without becoming violent, to be prepared without being aggressive, to understand conflict without seeking it. The Kresh delegate nodded slowly. My people always believed we were the galaxy's warriors. We were proud of it. But we were children playing with sticks compared to what humans have done. If we are going to have warriors in the council, better to have ones who know the true cost of war. More representatives began nodding. The mood in the chamber was shifting. Dean Chernak, who had been listening via communication link, spoke up. The human students at the Institute do not want war. They are terrified of their own history. When they presented their data, they looked ashamed. They do not want to be violent. They want to be better than their ancestors. That is exactly the attitude we need, the Skeller representative said. Not warriors who glorify violence, but teachers who understand it and choose otherwise. The chancellor let the discussion continue for another hour. Representatives who had been afraid began to see possibilities. Representatives who had been skeptical began to ask questions. Slowly, very slowly, consensus emerged. Finally, the chancellor called for a vote. The question before us: should humanity retain full council membership with the understanding that they will share their knowledge of conflict resolution and peacekeeping with all member species? The vote was not unanimous, but it was clear. 39 in favor, 6 against, 2 abstaining. The motion passes, the chancellor announced. Humanity remains in the council. Furthermore, we establish a new council initiative, the Institute for Conflict Studies and Resolution. Humans will lead this institute, teaching other species how to prepare for conflict while maintaining peace. Back at the Galactic Institute, the 4 human students knew nothing about the council session. They were sitting in their quarters waiting for news. Dean Chernak had told them the council was meeting, but not what they were discussing. When the dean finally called them to his office, they went together, holding hands like children facing punishment. The dean's body was bright gold, the happiest color Morphix could display. The council has voted, he said without preamble. You are staying. Full membership confirmed. The humans sagged with relief. But there is more, the dean continued. They want you to teach. All of 3 months passed quickly. The Galactic Institute transformed around the human students. Professor Velthar reorganized his entire Comparative Civilization Studies course. What had been a general overview of different species now included a mandatory unit specifically about humanity. The course was called The Human Paradox, Conflict, and Cooperation. Students who had fled the lecture hall in fear during that first presentation slowly returned. Curiosity overcame terror. They wanted to understand these strange beings who should be extinct but were not. Kangde found himself living 2 lives. During the day, he attended classes like any other student. He studied xenobiology, learned about alien ecosystems, and struggled with quantum mathematics like everyone else. But 3 evenings a week he taught. The first teaching session had been terrifying. 50 alien students sat in the classroom, watching him with expressions he could not read. Some looked afraid. Some looked curious. All of them looked at him like he was something dangerous and fascinating. My name is Kangde, he had said, his voice shaking slightly. I am human. I am going to tell you about my species, and I am going to be completely honest. Some of it will be hard to hear, but I need you to understand that we are more than just our history. He had shown them images of Earth. Not battles or wars, but ordinary life. A family having dinner together, children playing in a park, a street musician performing for strangers, a hospital where doctors treated patients regardless of their ability to pay. This is also humanity, he had said. We are not just violence. We are kindness too. We are both. Always both. Now, 3 months later, his classes were full. Students waited on lists to get in. They wanted to hear about humanity from humans themselves. Choi Hana specialized in teaching about human technological development. She showed how necessity drove invention, how wars accelerated scientific progress, and how that same science eventually became tools for peace. Park Jiwon taught about human culture and society. He explained family structures, religious beliefs, artistic movements, and social evolution. He helped aliens understand that humans were not mindless warriors, but complex beings with rich inner lives. Li Taeyang focused on human cooperation. He showed how former enemies became allies, how competing nations built joint projects, how humans could set aside differences when facing common threats. Together, they were building a bridge between humanity and the galaxy. On this particular day, Day was preparing for something bigger than his usual classes. The Galactic Council had requested a formal presentation. This time, the entire galaxy would be watching. The presentation would be broadcast to every council world, translated into every council language. He stood in his quarters, reviewing his notes. Hana sat nearby, offering suggestions. Jiwan was checking the visual presentations. Taiyang was running through technical checks. "Are you nervous?" Hana asked. "Terrified," Dee admitted. "What if I say something wrong? What if I make humans look worse?" "You cannot make us look worse than our actual history," Jiwan said with dark humor. "Just be honest. That is what they respect." The communication panel chimed. Dean Shernak's voice came through. "It is time. The council is ready for you." They walked to the main auditorium together. The room was enormous, designed to hold 5,000 beings. Today it was completely full. Every seat was taken. Aliens of every species watched them enter. Professor Velthar met them at the entrance. His quills were their normal silver color now, no longer pale with fear. "You have changed how we think," he said quietly. "Whatever happens today, remember that." Day stepped onto the presentation platform. The lights dimmed. Holographic displays activated around him. He could feel billions of eyes watching through the broadcast. He took a deep breath. "You are afraid of us," he began. His voice was steady now, clear and strong. "I understand why. Our history is violent by your standards. Actually, it is violent by any reasonable standard. But let me tell you what you are missing." He activated the first display. Images appeared, floating in the air around him. This is the International Space Station. It was built by nations that were enemies just decades before. Russian cosmonauts and American astronauts living together in space. Chinese scientists and European researchers sharing data. Former enemies choosing cooperation. Next image. These are the Geneva Conventions, rules for how to fight wars, created by warriors who understood the horror of war. Rules that say some things are forbidden even in combat. Rules that we actually enforce. Next image. This is Doctors Without Borders. Medical professionals who run toward danger, not away from it. They treat anyone who needs help, regardless of which side of a conflict they are on. Humans created this organization. Humans who had seen enough war to know that healing matters more than winning. He showed them the Antarctic Treaty, nations agreeing to keep an entire continent free of weapons and military bases. Valuable territory set aside purely for science and preservation. "We are violent," Day said. "Yes. We fought each other for resources, for ideology, for pride, for survival. We created weapons that could end our species. We used those weapons. We killed millions of our own kind." The auditorium was completely silent. "But here is what makes us human," Day continued. "We learned. Every single war taught us something. Every atrocity eventually horrified us. Every weapon we created eventually disgusted us. We are not peaceful because we do not know violence. We are peaceful because we know it too well." Park Ji-won joined him on the platform. "Every human alive carries genetic memory of ancestors who survived wars, famines, plagues, disasters. We know what we are capable of. We know the cost. That knowledge makes us careful. It makes us value peace in ways you cannot fully understand." Choi Hana activated her own display. "Earth has been at relative peace for 75 years. That is 3 human generations choosing cooperation despite our nature, despite our history, because of our will. Every single day, 8 billion humans wake up and choose not to destroy each other. That choice is not easy. It is not natural. It is deliberate." Li Taiyang showed the final data. "We came to the stars because we want to be better than we were. We want to learn from you. Your peaceful natures, your cooperative societies, your gentle histories. We have much to teach about surviving conflict, but we have even more to learn about avoiding it." Day looked out at the audience. 5,000 faces, most of them still afraid, but some showing something else now. Understanding, maybe. Or hope. "We will never be like you," Day said honestly. "We will always carry our violent past. It is part of who we are. But we can choose what we do with that knowledge. We can choose to be teachers instead of warriors. We can choose to help you prepare for conflicts we pray you never face. He paused, then spoke his final words carefully. We are not asking you to trust us completely. We are asking you to give us a chance. Let us prove that humans can be more than our worst moments. Let us show you that even a species born in violence can choose peace, not because it is easy, but because it is right. The presentation ended. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Professor Velthar stood up. His quills lifted high, a sign of respect and approval. Slowly, other professors stood as well. Then students began rising. Within minutes, the entire auditorium was standing. It was not applause exactly. Different species showed approval in different ways. But the message was clear. They understood. Not completely, maybe never completely, but enough. Dean Chernak approached the platform. His body glowed with warm golden light. The Galactic Council has voted. The Institute for Conflict Studies and Resolution is officially established. Kang Day, you are appointed as its founding director. Day felt his knees go weak. But I am just a student. You are a teacher, the dean corrected. And now you are a director. The council voted unanimously. Even the species that feared you most now recognize what you can offer. Over the following weeks, the new institute took shape. It occupied an entire wing of the Galactic Institute. Students from every species applied to study there. They wanted to learn from humans. Not how to make war, but how to survive it. How to end it. How to build peace from ashes. Day taught his first official class a month later. The curriculum covered human conflict resolution throughout history. But it focused most heavily on the successes, the moments when humans chose peace over violence. My grandfather fought in a war, Day told his students on the first day. He never talked about the fighting, but he talked about what came after. About choosing to forgive. About building friendships with former enemies. About deciding that the past did not have to define the future. A Quillian student raised a wing. Is that why you came to the stars? To leave your violent past behind? No, Day answered. We came to the stars carrying our past with us. We cannot leave it behind. It is part of us. But we can choose what we do next. We can choose to use our knowledge to help others. We can choose to be more than what we were. And if you fail? A Drethani student asked. If humans become violent again? Then we will have to stop ourselves, Day said honestly. Again, like we have done before. It is not a perfect system, but it is the only one we have. Admiral Kethrin visited the Institute Sever.